Gordon snap out of it. You're staring at me again.
In 1998, following the release of their critically acclaimed Half-Life, Valve Software assigned themselves with the difficult task of creating a sequel that would not only live up to fans' expectations, but surpass them in every way. Half-Life 2 would feature an exciting new engine capable of rendering the game world in stunning photorealism, an engaging story, as well as a diverse set of characters and enemies. It was one of the most ambitious projects in gaming history. Sadly, it would also prove to be one of the most troubled ones, with the game having suffered a number of delays and at one point even being leaked to the public in its entirety. To say that Half-Life 2's development was a stressful challenge for its creators to overcome would be putting it mildly. Even though Valve's hard work proved to be worth the wait when Half-Life 2 was met with acclaim from fans and critics alike on release, the troubled history behind the game would foreshadow the uncertain future of the series as a whole. While fans kept themselves busy by modding Half-Life 2 to no end, the company decided to work on additional episodes for the game. Episode 1 and 2 were developed simultaneously. This aided the developers in streamlining the story between the two games and allowed them to create an immersive and seamless experience for the player. Episode 1 was praised on release in 2006, much like Episode 2 in 2007, which ended on an ambiguous cliffhanger. According to interviews, the third episode of Half-Life 2 was to be released sometime after the Orange Box's release and would consequently wrap up all of the loose ends. Yet, mysteriously, nothing came of the sort. Surprisingly, the add-ons didn't stop at number 3. On the contrary, other companies were in fact commissioned to work on additional episodes, yet none of them saw the light of day. Thankfully, fans of the beloved series have devoted themselves to unearth as much information as possible regarding these enigmatic expansion packs. So what happened during development? How did these lost episodes fit into the story of the Half-Life universe? And most importantly, why were they canceled? According to a PC Gamer interview in 2006, Gabe Newell openly stated that, in his opinion, episodic releases were to be the future of gaming. Valve planned on releasing 4 episodes to the critically acclaimed Half-Life 2, with roughly half a year to 8 months in between each release. The plan was to have 2 separate teams work on Episode 1 and 2. Once the first team was finished, they would get a head start working on the third episode. In May of 2007, developers David Sparer and Doug Lombardi said in an interview that players would not be returning to City 17 in Episode 3, and that the climax of the game was a battle set at an Arctic research station. Later that year, suspicions that the episode was going to be the conclusion to Half-Life 2's story arc were confirmed, though it would not be the end of the overall Half-Life series. In early 2008, 33 pieces of concept art for Episode 3 were shared online, although the community would discover it 4 years later. Images show the game's secondary main character, Alex Vance, in various redesigned outfits, seemingly equipped for cold weather, as well as several renditions of a helicopter crashed into ice, further suggesting that the episode would predominantly take place within an Arctic environment. The next year, Newell revealed that a new character would be introduced to the Half-Life universe. The NPC, a Deaf Resistance member, was to be Alex's love interest before she met Gordon. In order to practice and communicate with him, Alex programmed her robot, Dog, with the knowledge of sign language. According to Newell, the team was experimenting with many new techniques, with improved support for hearing-impaired players being an important milestone for the company. 2010 marked the last year in which Newell would share information about the game's plot. He explained that Episode 3 was going to return the franchise to its psychological horror roots and exploit the fans' deepest fears. Gordon Freeman would remain largely unchanged. There were no plans to make him a talking character, and the story would once again be emphasized by the player's companions. In the following years, Valve became increasingly quiet, continually dismissing any questions about the franchise as fans were told to hang in there, and that news about Episode 3 would be released soon. Yet this never happened. In an interview with Game Informer, one Valve employee was asked about the game and the likelihood of the story arc ever being concluded. According to the source, every time work was started on a new Half-Life experience, the momentum fizzled out. Developers pitched various concepts to the higher-ups at the company, including bizarre ones such as an RTS game set in the Half-Life universe and a live-action, choice-driven experience, but these never made it into the development phase. The employee concluded that chances of Episode 3 ever seeing the light of day are unlikely. Valve hopes that by remaining tight-lipped about the sequel, fans will stop talking about it over time. Episode 4 was unique in that it would have been a standalone story set in the Half-Life universe developed by a third-party company, Arcane Studios. The episode was codenamed Return to Ravenholm and was set before the end of the second episode. In one iconic chapter of Half-Life 2, Gordon Freeman fought through swarms of headcrabs and zombies in the desolate town of Ravenholm. These would have been recurring enemies, so it is possible that the add-on wanted to replicate the eerie atmosphere of the chapter and develop it into a full-blown campaign. In late 2007, the project was discontinued, yet the fans were not even aware of its cancellation for quite some time. The relationship between Valve and Arcane was not tainted as a result, though, since they both collaborated on The Crossing, another game that sadly never saw the light of day either. Less than 3 years later, concept artist and 3D modeler Randy Humphries of EA posted 6 pieces of concept art for another cancelled, yet unspecified Half-Life project on his Coraflot profile. These depicted detailed drawings of an area called Haven, a worn-out staircase in an apartment block, scenery from City 17, and 2 enemies, the Overwatch soldier and a civil protection officer. A decade later, veteran Valve writer and game developer Mark Laidlaw helped shed some light on Humphries' concept art, explaining to a fan via email that it was likely just a concept that was never pitched to Valve, and was merely used to beef up the employee's art portfolio. He states that there was never a creative relationship between the companies that would have led to conversations about such a thing, and that if this had ever had the slightest bit of reality on Valve's end, there would be a lot of people who knew about it. Back in May 2011, an unexpected data leak occurred in Eidos's servers. As a result, developers' CVs and resumes were spread across the internet. Some of them referred to an unannounced project, adding Valve Software in brackets next to them. It was also named Half-Life 2, Episode 4, Ravenholm, and Return to Ravenholm. These references were edited out shortly afterwards, yet the damage was already done, and the news spread like wildfire. On January 13, 2012, Laidlaw confirmed the expansion's existence to the Half-Life fan site Lambda Generation. Laidlaw explained in an email, "A lot of the staples of Ravenholm were pretty much played out, and the fact that it would have to take place sometime before the end of Episode 2, so as not to advance beyond where Valve had pushed the story, was a creative constraint that would hamper the project and Arcane." Another fan site, Valve Time, published 4 new screenshots of various levels, alongside an animation reel featuring a headcrab playing with a severed head, a reanimated corpse standing up, and a person attempting to smash through an obstacle. These animations were likely intended on being used during certain scripted events. Curiously, 3 of the screenshots depict on the heads-up display, alongside health and ammo, a third unit named Absorption, respectively. However, there is no evidence available that explains its purpose and whether it was integral for processing through the game. More images emerged a few months afterwards, depicting various in-game models and decorations, such as trucks, wet floor signs, and mops, among other assets. All of these were created from scratch and thus did not exist in previous games. In 2015, eagle-eyed fans managed to uncover 11 additional screenshots. These were taken from the digital portfolio of Robert Walensky, who was a senior environment artist at Arcane Studios when the game was in development. The screenshots depict various filthy underground tunnels, coated with graffiti and littered with miscellaneous pieces of scenery, including children's toys. Some of the pictures in particular depict a number of rusted cell doors. Whether it's a containment area or a cell block for the aforementioned hospital setting is open for speculation, since it is never revealed what is inside them. For a couple of years, all was quiet once again. That is, until an unknown individual leaked the original map files for every episode of Half-Life 2 this year on March 24th. ValveTime.net was quick to publish the screenshots, depicting a style guide for a snow-themed version of Ravenholm, shot from different angles. This was developed by Junction Point Studios in late 2005, and its lead designer was Warren Spector, better known as the mastermind behind the critically acclaimed first-person RPG Deus Ex. According to Valve Time, it is implied that the player crashes into a warehouse in a gondola. He wakes up in a room with 2 unique characters named Duncan and Scooter. There is a train station and buildings nearby. A group of rebels and Combine soldiers fight on the streets. The map is said to have contained small puzzles, scripted sequences, and fights. Spectre had mentioned working on a Half-Life 2 expansion pack in an interview with Game Informer 2 years prior. After canceling development on a previous game, thus running out of money, Valve approached the company and requested they work on an expansion pack. The funding helped keep the team afloat, to Spectre's relief. Spectre told Game Informer that the add-on was to fill in one of the gaps in the Half-Life story, though it is never clarified what that gap might be. An exclusive feature was the new weapon known as the Magnet Gun. Spectre said in a Reddit Q&A that it was entirely different than the Gravity Gun, and both weapons would have been super complementary. Alas, Disney purchased the studio, forcing them to cancel the Half-Life project after 2 years of work. It is safe to say that Valve was incredibly keen on third-party episodic releases. Nonetheless, since they were merely spin-offs and not integral to the lore of the series, consisting of little more than fragments of prototype builds and scraps of concept art, chances are slim that they will ever see the light of day. With Valve having made numerous unsuccessful attempts to continue the main Half-Life storyline, it seems unlikely that an official sequel will ever be released to the public. The troubled developments of games past and the high-quality standards set by the company may both be defining reasons as to why Valve eventually decided not to pursue a Half-Life sequel anymore. In addition, with the company's proprietary digital distribution software, Steam, and games like Dota 2 and Counter-Strike Global Offensive raking in billions of dollars, would there be any point in making a game that may or may not live up to the hype? This is debatable. It leaves us with one question. Does Valve owe it to the fans to finish what they started? What are your thoughts? For more and all things Half-Life, be sure to subscribe to GVMERS.